Hello, I'm Shelley Klein, and I'm the curator at the Santa Maria Valley Historical Society Museum, located here at 616 South Broadway in Santa Maria. We became a society back in 1955 when Ethel May Dorsey decided at the 50th anniversary of being a city, 1905, that she should bring together the local people, and she did. She brought together Winston Wickenden, Leo Presker, and Marian Aquistapache as some of the people to put together a society so that we would be able to collect the history and the artifacts and have a museum here at Santa Maria. So we started with gathering up different artifacts and documents and the stories of our valley. And that eventually led to the book, This Is Our Valley, which we do have here at the museum, which has the history of the Santa Maria Valley. And I really suggest it for locals that are here. My mother was a school teacher at Cook Street School, and she taught 3rd grade. And she actually read this to them after lunch. And there's several people who remember her and remember all the wonderful stories that she shared about the Santa Maria Valley and the beginnings of our town. So Ethel May Dorsey was married to Harry Dorsey, and he was the owner of our Gaiety Theater that used to be located on East Main Street, not far from the Bradley Hotel. That, you all may know, burned down. So when the society first started, we collected the artifacts, and they were in the Carnegie Building, the Carnegie Library, in 1955. But as most libraries are with basements, it became damp. But we do still have the charter of the original signers from the 1955 Santa Maria Valley Historical Society Museum. And that's one of the things we do here, is we want to preserve. So we've got this, of course, all framed, and I'm able to use it in different displays. We just recently went, thanks to a grant from the Altrusa Club, had an 1886 newspaper article about the Woofa Woofa Washington birthday ball in February of 1886. And it lists all of the men. Of course, remember, women back then didn't get to vote or be very prominent in any of those organizations, except women's organizations. And so I had to go down to Los Angeles and find someone who was able to preserve that paper. So we do have it properly framed now and preserved, because newspaper is not meant to last. And so we feel very fortunate to have an 1886 Washington birthday ball newspaper. So we also preserve other things. I have a letter from John Sutter about his son that we were able to preserve. I have the marriage license of Viola Cook and Samuel Jefferson Jones from again, before the turn of the century. And we have a wonderful certificate from the World's Fair in 1904, when this Samuel Jefferson Jones, I guess, shipped his apples from our valley to the fair, and he did receive a silver certificate. And again, thanks to a grant from the Altrusa Club, we were able to get all of those items framed so we can display them locally. And we love it when people donate their different items to us, so we can continue to collect the history and preserve it for future generations. So the mission of the Santa Maria Valley Historical Society is to collect, preserve, display, and share with all the people of our valley the history here. And so right behind you, we have some of the oldest items. We have a sword from a soldier on the Portola expedition that was donated by Ramona Foxen Wickenden, along with Eduardo Foxen's Bible with the names and the birth dates of her children. Also behind you, we have a saber-toothed tiger that was an exact replica from the La Brea Tar Pits. And why the La Brea Tar Pits? Because that was the home of George Allen Hancock. And that was donated by someone to be used by the Allan Hancock students as they studied fossils and bones and such. The students, of course, our young children, love our railroad items and, of course, our saber-toothed tiger. People who enjoy the Western life love our brands that we have, and we have several saddles donated from the Giacomani family, Hancock saddle, and the Seamus saddle, and he was the foreman for Hancock out at Rancho La Brea. Other people just like seeing some of the old items that we have here, both from different makeup containers to a carnival glass set that belonged to the women at Betaravia, to tools that we have, such surveyor tools and things that have been donated to our museum. Some of the most fun things to do here at the Santa Maria Valley Historical Society Museum, of course, is to greet and visit with people who are both locals who didn't know we were here and don't know about all the different interesting things that have happened in this valley, but also the people from out of town who would like to come and see our local history. Also, I get multiple phone calls or people who come to visit who have some questions or information, who need some pictures or some research. I do spend a lot of time researching different families or different events. For example, what happened to the monkey park at Waller Park? And of course, in case you didn't know, the zoo and the monkey pond had to be taken away because the cleaning costs were getting too high, and so it had to be locally maintained, and it just became too much for our local community to maintain that. So no longer do we have those items. But there's been a lot of interesting things that happen in our valley and a lot of different changes that have come about. The Santa Maria Valley Historical Society Museum is a free public museum. We do, of course, have memberships, and that's what keeps us open. We're along with keep our people working and our supplies, pay the electric bill. We are part of the City of Santa Maria, and we are open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 4 p.m. One of the exhibits that many people are drawn to is our exhibit from the Chumash that we have here. And these are some baskets and materials that have been found in the surrounding hills. The Chumash did not live actually in our valley because it was the riverbed flooding area. You know, they talked about all the tumbleweeds, and they talked about all the sinkholes, that there were almost quicksand-ish kind of areas. But up in the mountains and out by Guadalupe and the hills in the surrounding areas, there were the Indians had little temporary villages, and we do have some of those items here on display. On the other side here, we have our Four Corners display. So you may or may not know that Santa Maria has had 3 names. The first one of which, of course, was Grangerville. So around the 1860s, when we became a state, the land grants came about. So we had people come into our valley because the ranchos were in the hills. We had Rancho Guadalupe, Rancho Tipisque, Rancho Sway, Rancho Tinaquah, the Fox and Rancho, and Rancho Sisquoc surrounding us. But the river valley that we are actually located in was not part of the rancho. So that became homestead land, and so we had settlers come. Our first settler was Benjamin Wiley, and so Ben Wiley Street is named after him. And we do have a book here about the streets in town and who they were named after, if you're interested in that. So in around 1875, we had a survey, because that's when we became an official county, the Santa Barbara County, in 1875. So our land for our city was surveyed then. So previously we were called Grangerville, or Grangeville, because there was a Grange store, we believe, out on West Main Street between here and Guadalupe, because Guadalupe is a little bit older than we are. And we became a more prominent city because the railroad came through here. We have over here the display about the Pacific Coast Railway, and that came through Santa Maria in 1882. Anyway, in 1875, when our Four Corner founders, we call that because they donated a quarter of their homestead property on the center of Broadway and Main Street to be part of the city, and at the time they named it Central City. There's a rumor they didn't want to name it after any landmarks, rivers, mountains, etc., but they wanted to realize it was central to the area between Guadalupe and Sisquoc, maybe San Luis and Santa Barbara. And so we had Mr. Cook, Thornburg, Fessler, and Miller, and if you look at the map, you will see that those streets are the boundaries of the original Central City plot. But unfortunately, there was a Central City, Colorado, that had a lot of silver. And when the railroad came through, mail, and we do have examples of mail back then, where you would just put someone's name, you would put Central City, and you would put CA, for California. And well, Central City, Colorado, CO, it seemed that our mail was going to Colorado instead of here in California. So our post office, though, happened to be named Santa Maria because they did name the post office after the river and the valley. If you look at the 1875 census we have for Santa Barbara County, there's a few people that live in Central City, but there is a lot of people who live in the Santa Maria Valley. So basically, when our city founders wanted to keep the name Central City, they were told by the federal government that it would be easier to change the name of your city than it would to be changing your post office. So therefore, we became Santa Maria, and officially in around 1884, it was voted in that we would be Santa Maria, California. Now, we weren't quite a city then. It wasn't until 1905 that we became a city. And again, the story there is that the women of the Minerva Club wanted a park, our Buena Vista Park, located across from Santa Maria High School. And they also wanted a library. That was the number one thing that the Minerva, or the Ladies Literary Society, wanted. So they wrote to Mr. Carnegie, but Carnegie said, you've got to be an incorporated city because we want to make sure that you maintain that library. So the story goes that they were needling their husbands that they needed, number one, water for their park, and number two, they needed to be a city so they could get a grant from Carnegie. And eventually, I think it was around the third vote, in 1905, we were incorporated as a city with Alvin Cox being our first president of the city council. The name mayor didn't come along till a couple years later. So that's the story of our beginnings. But we did have a lot of industry all along there before the 1905s. For example, we had the Union Sugar factory around 1890s that came into be and developed into the city of Betaravia. And we do have displays related to that. We also, of course, have the industry of agriculture all around us. We have many displays in that, including the ranchos and the cowboy kind of blacksmiths, etc. In fact, we do have Allan Hancock's Silver Rose saddle. He's got little rosettes, and that's part of my preservation is cleaning the saddles and polishing all that silver. So I love it when I have volunteers that come and help me do that. We also have the industry of the oil industry. That came around the town of Orcutt, 1904, is when Orcutt was named for Mr. Orcutt, although he didn't want this town to be named after him. But he helped find the oil, which became a boom again in our whole entire valley and up on Orcutt Hill and in the surrounding area here. And of course, none of that would have been able to happen if we didn't have a railroad. So not only did we have the Pacific Coast Railroad, but we had the Santa Maria Valley Railroad. And it was exactly 100 years ago that Captain Allan Hancock came and purchased that railroad. And that will be our newest exhibit that we're going to have for our open house in October. We're redoing the Santa Maria Valley Railroad exhibit here in the museum. So some of our favorite displays we have, exhibits here that we have, are the Santa Maria High School display. Everyone loves to see what the high school originally looked like and how it's changed over the years. And we now have included a cheerleader uniform, thank you to Galen Clark, from the 1966 era. So people love to see the Letterman sweaters, the Letterman jackets, and the different letters and ribbons and pennants and things we have from Santa Maria High School. Another one of the exhibits that people really like, of course, is our fireman exhibit, because we do have some of the old fireman hats. And we, of course, also have an article both about the Bradley Hotel, where we lost Mr. Alvin Newton, the firefighter, but also the one where we burnt down our own fire department. Back in the day, they were volunteers, and the students, believe it or not, from St. Mary's School, because that was so close to downtown Santa Maria, they actually remember seeing all that smoke, but there was no alarm because they actually burn out all the electricity for the alarm. So it was quite a mess back then, and we did lose a lot of the older documents from the fire department, along with some older fire trucks and vehicles. But we still do have some items here at the museum that we've been able to preserve from the fire department. And another one of the very popular exhibits we have is from our sports club locally. Not only things that have been given to us, but are on loan from the sports club. We had the Santa Maria Indian team. We have pictures of the 1960 junior college Hancock winning football team. And we actually have a trophy from the Little League team that, believe it or not, is almost as tall as I am. Hence, I don't think anybody wants it in their living room. But so we have lots of things on display there related to the sports that was very, very popular in Santa Maria, even way back in the beginning in the 1880s, when the Miller boys and the Arianas boys all played baseball for the city of Santa Maria. We are very fortunate to have the stove that came from the Foxen Adobe at Rancho Tinaquac here in our dining room era, and a wooden table from Ida Mae Twitchell Blockman and her family. And next to that, we have an old switchboard from the Santa Maria Telephone Company, along with multiple pictures of the original telephone company building on Broadway. And it's interesting as we have the same picture in two different years, and one shows how the city used to flood and the water would come up past our curbs. And if you look at the downtown area, you will notice two things around like East and West Fessler, East and West Mill Street, East and West Cypress Street, but they are extremely wide, and that was done on purpose so that you could turn a team of horses and a wagon around, because nobody wants to back up a wagon with horses. And in additional, you will also notice those original curbs were very high, and that had to do with the flooding. This is the river valley, and so when there was a lot of rain, it definitely flooded in the area. And we have a display about the precipitation data in the Santa Maria area, along with multiple pictures that will show you how the city flooded back before Twitchell Dam was built in the 1950s. So one of our permanent displays we have is the art room and the Hancock room. The Hancock room, we have some pictures of Alan Hancock. He's with Walt Disney, because Walt Disney also loved trains, and we have pictures of both him and Marion. Remember, our Marion Hospital is named Marion because Hancock donated those 10 acres for the new hospital. We also have in that room our art donated from the Froome family. We have art from Mr. Froome. He was a copper worker and he did paint a painting. And we have also some more local paintings and drawings from people here in the Santa Maria Valley. In addition, we do honor the Japanese farmers and the Japanese family members who came to our valley because of the Betaravia farms. Did you know that we grow celery and cauliflower and broccoli and many of those other vegetables because of the Japanese farmers. We at one time were the lettuce capital of the world thanks to the Minami family. So we want to honor all of those people who came here. We are open every day, Tuesday through Saturday from 11 to 4. We are located at 616 South Broadway in Santa Maria, right next to the Chamber of Commerce. In fact, in 1970s, when we outgrew the Carnegie Library, it was our members from the Santa Maria Valley Historical Society who donated and fundraised in order to build this building and share it with the Chamber of Commerce. And we do have a beautiful, huge plaque here located in the museum where we have all of those families' names on it to honor them. We also have some local tiles that were done recently as a fundraiser, again, to honor different families and different pictures and buildings in the Santa Maria Valley. We really would like people to come visit us here at Santa Maria Valley Historical Society on South Broadway, but we also have a Facebook page, Santa Maria Valley Historical Society. We're part of I Remember Santa Maria When, and we also have our own website. It's www.santamariahistory.com. And you can donate there, learn more about how to be a member, and see some of our historical write-ups that we have.